I'm having an enjoy, Gary.
Good.
Oh, that's taking the edge off.
The edge off what? I've never.
Is anyone going to get some food? Is someone,
No.
food might be good. If I give someone some cash to get some chips.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. You sure you just want chips?
Yeah, just chips.
Money's not good.
Maybe let's get a menu.
Yeah, let's get some well and truly stuff in. I haven't got any nerves to get over.
Yeah, we'll get some ribs, some nachos.
Turn the block up. Alright, how you doing?
Very well, yourself?
Good to see you. Alright?
MD.
Oh, if we put.
Oh, right, sorry. Good numbers.
That's all right. Do you know that I had to put his date of birth? And I engraved it. I engraved it in physically.
So I said, oh, don't you know, thinking round.
He's going to be leaving with you now.
I remember.
You told us.
I remember going out one night, along with all of us, and Phil was just sitting there with his arm around all that was going on. So I went together.
My best mate drove me to the hospital.
Oh, you got it over your time out, right?
Are these your minders?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, minders. You look grand.
Hello.
Hello, Gary.
I'm Chris.
Hello, Chris. Oh, look, there's a man with kilt on. Hello.
Have a time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, great. Hello.
Hello, James.
Hello. Hey. Well, actually, it did have to be taken in a bit. Oh, sorry. No, sorry, it had to be taken out a bit. Sorry. Yes. No. So yeah.
Thank you for reminding me who I've come for. Hello, Gary. Cool.
Come on in.
You feel some more relaxed than you were. It was a bit of panic.
Well, there was a little bit of panic.
Did I hear the word?
All these banging skirts, all these fucking dresses. It's dreadful.
Don't, I might delete that later, Harry. Mine. I didn't
try again eventually. No, I just fell off the pole. That was what vodka back then.
That's gone and Ray-Ban for the shirt. That's guaranteeing you take something else. That shows they're a couple of...
Yeah, they're a bit mean, aren't they? I'm very impressed. Oh no, I didn't.
Because you might just need to sit down.
No, cool. Come together to witness the marriage of James and Elizabeth, to pray for God's blessing on them, to share their joy and to celebrate their love. Marriage is a gift of God in creation, through which husband and wife may know the grace of God. It is given that society, it strengthens community. No one should enter into it lightly or selfishly, but this way. They will each give their consent of power and make solemn vows. And in token of this, they will each give. James, will you take Elizabeth to be your wife? Will you love her, comfort her, honour and protect her, and forsaking all others, be faithful to her as long as you both live?
I will.
Elizabeth, will you take James to be your husband? Will you love him, comfort him, honour and protect him, and forsaking all others, be faithful to him as long as you both live? Will you, the families and friends of Elizabeth and James, support and uphold them in their marriage, now and in the years to come?
We will.
God our Father, from the beginning you have blessed creation with abundant life. Pour out your blessings upon Elizabeth and James, that they may be joined in mutual love and companionship, in holiness and commitment to each other. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who is alive and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. And sit for and blossoming shrubs, and at times are protected by walls and gates. And these can be locked, and they are locked every evening, and otherwise they would become vandalized and be made to look like a rubbish tip. And you, James and Elizabeth, will have to protect your marriage against many things. Things that I don't need to tell you about. A marriage needs protection. And the best advice cherish
love and to cherish,
till death us do part.
till death do us part,
According to God's holy law.
according to God's holy law.
In the presence of God, I make this vow.
In the presence of God, I make this vow.
I, Elizabeth, take you, James, to be my husband,
I, Elizabeth, take you, James, to be my husband,
to have and to hold,
to have and to hold,
from this day forward,
from this day forward,
for better, for worse,
for better, for worse,
for richer, for poorer,
for richer, for poorer,
in sickness and in health,
in sickness and in health,
to love and to cherish,
to love and to cherish,
till death us do part.
till death us do part,
According to God's holy law.
according to God's holy law.
In the presence of God, I make this vow.
In the presence of God, I make this vow.
Heavenly Father, by your blessing, let these therefore proclaim that they are man and wife. Those whom God have joined together, let no one put us asunder. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, for you have created joy and gladness, pleasure and delight, love, peace and fellowship. Pour out the abundance of your blessing upon Elizabeth and James in their new life together. Let their love for each other be a seal upon their hearts and a crown upon their heads. Bless them in their work and in their companionship, awake and asleep, in joy and in sorrow, in life and in death. Finally, in your mercy, bring them to that banquet where your saints feast forever in your heavenly home. We ask this through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Ghost, bless, preserve, and keep you. The Lord mercifully grant you the riches of his grace, that you may please him both in body and soul, and living together in faith and love, may receive the blessings of eternal life. Amen. Now sing our singing.
and love. Yeah. May their marriage be life-giving and lifelong, enriched.
Well done, darling. High five.
Yeah, you will. You will.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm really this way. No, I'm going in a minute to see it. Oh my god. First night of doing it. Can't wait to
told exactly what to do.
One.
Is that any better?
One.
No. We're going to try this in another input.
Yeah, put in another input, yeah.
The reverb's got down.
So now volume right down. Okay.
One.
Yeah,
That's the best.
One.
And then you know.
So the red light will come on.
You know what Chris is like.
Yeah, bollocks.
He breaks up at 6 in the morning, doesn't he? Mark, or it's Paul. And so.
Get me good side, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, but we were wondering why we were on the bed it has something to do with our Christmas. Did you?
Shall I give you a no?
Yeah, so they're a little bit better behaved. That's where
Who decides who wins?
You're quite dull, though. You're quite dull.
I can actually dance. I'm like a, well, I get physically tired, but I get mentally tired. The girls yeah, so I'm like, there's only so many moves, only so many more moves I can put together. But there is, there's like a, this place is like, the main dance floor is a blues dance floor. Oh yeah.
No, not top. Not top. Just one. Oh, I don't know. I'm not seeing it like that.
Do what you like.
Maybe we don't cut it at all.
I want to be in the video.
The first person to get it through to me was Annabelle Johnson. So if she'd like to come up and correct her prize. It's the Brawl Wedding Mum. So before we hear from the bride, the groom and the best men, I'd like to invite to the stage the sister of the bride, Miss Nancy Evans.
Okay, this wasn't actually on the programme, so I'm not going to keep you very long. 2 minutes exactly, if you've got a tab running, you know, what do you call it? Yeah. Okay, start your stops now. Are you having a wonderful day? Yeah. And are you sitting comfortably? Yeah. Then I'll begin. There once was a girl called Lulu. Actually, I'm not going to tell you the story of Lou and James because, sod it, we all know that Lou is the best storyteller that there is. So, in fact, people often tell her that she should write a book, which I think is a very kind way of saying that she finds it very difficult to separate fact from fiction. Lou has always had an overactive imagination, which came in handy when we were children and wanting a puppy. Dad finally gave in after seeing his eldest daughter walking the streets of Woking with a real dog lead attached to an imaginary dog, which she'd named Dewhurst after the local butcher. At the age of 15, Lou took on her first major role in life when she became Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind, ripping the curtains off the walls and making her very own ball gown, which she wore around the house. I think it was this role that inspired her extraordinary optimism, which she still retains to this day. But after all, tomorrow is another day, and by the age of 18, she ditched the ball gown in favour of gold flares, an even blonder wig, and a yellow tasselled bag slung around her shoulder emblazoned with "Free Tibet." When some hardcore lefty student activist type came up to her on campus in Birmingham saying, "I think it's really great the way that you're actively campaigning against the Chinese occupation," Lulu just looked blank. I don't think she even knew where Tibet was, let alone who was in control. She just liked the colour. Skipping lightly across Lou's next major starring role of her 20s and early 30s as Bridget Jones. I think the less said about that, the better. Lou's thoughts turned to more practical means of landing a husband. And she became Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. Lou, I don't think that you realise quite what no-hopers you made us seem when you said to me, in all earnestness one day, "Nan, I really think I need to marry into money so that I can support you all." So it's just as well you've married into the Cash family, Lily. Well done. One of the things that really set James apart from our perspective was that finally Lou put aside all of her former roles and finally became herself. And for his part, James really seems to get Lou, and it's fantastic to see the real understanding that there is between you two. Lou has been quite simply the best big sister to Johnny and me, and the best daughter to Mum and Dad. And James, I'm absolutely sure that she'll make you a most excellent wife. And today you have made a lot of people very, very happy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's raise our glasses to Mr. and Mrs. Cash.
It's Nancy Evans. Now, a lot of us kind of wonder when we grow up with a good friend what kind of woman they'll end up with. And I remember the first time I met Lou, and I just kind of thought, that's the woman. That's Jay's woman. That's the woman he'll marry. So can we have a round of applause now? She's going to come and take to the microphone. Lou Cash.
try and not read this, but I think I might have to read it now. So as many of you know, I can't bear being the centre of attention. So I will keep this to just under half an hour or so. And I've restricted use of the word darling as well. As my darling dad is no longer with us, there is no father of the bride speech, although, Nan, you did a really good job, thank you. I did have a quick look to see what sorts of things traditionally the father of the bride would have said at this point, but I don't think it would really be the done thing for me to tell you about what a delightful child I was and what a wonderful woman I have grown up to become. So what I would like to do instead is thank you all for being here today. I actually obviously wrote this speech a while ago, but it's exactly what I wanted to say. It's the most amazing thing to walk into a room full of people and not know where to begin socialising. We're so spoilt for choice with all our favourite people here, and you really have made our wedding day the most brilliant day for us both, and one that my husband and I will never forget for all the right reasons. I especially want to thank Bidey and Philip, my darling new in-laws, who have always been kind, generous and supportive, but particularly as we got ready for today. James doesn't do things by halves, even though he can take a while to get things done. We had been going out for 8 months before he finally got round to telling his parents that he had a new girlfriend. But when it came to the day of actually meeting them, I was treated to a gathering of the clans. I think I counted 14 members of the extended family, all in one afternoon. Bidey and Philip, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us today. You're the most wonderful parents-in-law, and I'm thrilled to be joining the ranks of the Cash Cullens. I want to thank my darling mum. We had to tie her to the seat tonight to stop her getting up to do the washing up. A few months ago, Mum presented me with a book that she said was doing the rounds when she got married in 1973. The book is called Total Woman, How to Make Your Marriage Come Alive. It's full of advice on how to revive romance, re-establish communication, and put the sizzle back into marriage. I thought perhaps if I read it before today, then I couldn't go far wrong. Mum is the kind of mum who always sounds absolutely delighted to hear from me, no matter what time I call or how dull the story I'm telling her. Her answer to any problem or upset is always the same. Let's say a little prayer, darling. I thought, sorry, I've just gone back on myself. Thank you, Mum, for everything that you've done to make today so special for us. And really, I wanted to thank all of my best girlfriends by name, but that is going to get a little bit boring, so I'm not going to mention you all by name, but you do all know who you are. I love my girlfriends very much, and thank you for being here and for being so happy and so excited for us. Friends from school days, university, teaching days, archive days. I know that you've been waiting almost as long as I have for me to get married. And I would like to give a special mention to two lovely girls, James's friend Sarah Spare and my friend Claire Moore. About 4 years ago, these two girls signed us up for the internet dating website phenomenon mysinglefriend.com. Sarah Beanie's internet dating website. And give or take a couple of 100 dates on James's side. The rest is history. I contacted Sarah Beanie at MSF to let her know of this success story. She sent us a thoughtful and deeply personal telegram, which I will read to you now. Congratulations, James and Lou, on your very special day. I'm so sorry that I can't be with you today, but please do remind your guests that we have a special offer of 3 months free membership at mysinglefriend.com, so that's a lovely memento for us all to keep. I should say that Sarah and Claire both get a commemorative limited edition Royal Place wedding mug, tankard. Finally, and the most important of all, I'd like to thank my darling James for making me so happy. In the film version of Jane Austen's Emma, the dashing Mr. Knightley proposes to Emma Woodhouse with the words, marry me, my wonderful, darling friend." James, in marrying you, I have married my funniest, loveliest, cleverest, most darling best friend. Thank you.
Please raise your glasses to the beautiful bride, Elizabeth Lou Cash. Now, next to the stage is the groom, the man of the day, my very good friend, James Cash.
When His Royal Highness Prince William gets up in a few weeks' time to give what could well be a cloyingly saccharine speech at the royal wedding, Mrs. Middleton, the commoner, Kate's mother, may feel inclined to poke the Duchess of Cornwall in the ribs, reprise her role as an air stewardess, and quip that the sick bags are in the seat in front. Well, I hope that my own cloyingly saccharine speech won't actually induce vomit. Although I can see some of you looking a little bit queasy already. Someone, of course, who isn't looking queasy is my gorgeous wife, who I think you all agree is looking absolutely beautiful in her wedding gown, flushed with the joys of being married to me. It's a really great day. I feel 10 foot tall, and Lou's having a great day, and it's just wonderful. It really is. And it's not just a momentous day for Lou and myself. It's actually quite an important day for my family. I'm now the very last of my grandparents' grandchildren to be married off, and furthermore, I am the very last in this line of the Cash family. So to hold, it's some responsibility to be the sole custodian of the family name. So all I can say is I hope I can perform well under pressure. We're very lucky to have all of you here today, so many people that we love. And we really appreciate that some people have gone to massive lengths to get here, take children out of school and gone through all sorts of hoops. And we've had people here from New York, the Maldives, the Isle of Man, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, France, Uckfield, those sorts of places. Ever since I proposed to Lou, we've been absolutely bowled over just by how generous people have been in just all manners of ways. And I would like to just sort of thank a few people individually here. Firstly and foremost to Lou's family, to Daphne, Johnny and Nancy, who they've shown me just such enormous warmth, heart and acceptance. To Johnny and Nancy, it meant so much for you to Lou today, to be by her side, and I thank you for fulfilling your role so splendidly. To Daphne, I probably owe you the greatest thanks of all, to thank you for your daughter, and all you have done to make her the remarkable woman that she is today. The kindness and gentleness of spirit that I see so clearly in you is just so very clearly reflected in Lou. I'd like to thank Rachel and Mark Hillman for the beautiful cake that they gave us today. I'd like to thank Ryan for keeping a steady hand, not keeping off the drink so he could do the filming. A big thanks to the second and third best art workers in London. Don't know who they are. I don't know if they know which is which, but let me just tell you that the first best art worker in London isn't invited. A big thanks to Esther for her loaning of her beloved Morris Minor. She's put into huge amounts of work into that, getting it through its MOT and putting up with me making mucky, smutty puns about polishing her headlamps. So thank you so much for that. I'm a little bit behind on my key card, so I'll just... Oh, yeah, who could forget? The Evening Standards, Rick Pearson, who will be performing, his Blue Attic Band will be performing tonight's entertainment. It'll be a 5-star performance, guaranteed. Of course, Sarah Spare and Claire Moore, without whose interfering meddling, none of us would be here today. My ushers, Edward and Gary, whose inimitable enunciation made him the only sensible choice for MC today. And then, of course, my best men, Bells and Burns, for doing a fantastic job today, put on a sterling, top-notch stag do, and one I'm blowing smoke up their arses for just being splendid chaps. Knowing you guys is the closest I'll ever get to being in a Viz comic. And I think that's an accolade worth having, personally. And then to my family, particularly my parents, for their enormous support over the years, and for moulding me into what I think is not an unreasonable marriage prospect. The fact that I'm just so enormously proud of them today seriously undermines every effort they've ever made to embarrass Charlotte, Ticky and me at every given opportunity. I know that their tenacity and dedication as parents means that now that we're all married off, they won't stint in this endeavour. I was told not to describe Lou as unique, because some people might think, well, it sounds a little bit special in a euphemistic kind of way. Well, Lou, of course, is incredibly special in all the very best of ways. Everyone who meets her, everyone who knows her, knows there's something about her. Whether it's this rare gift to ingratiate herself with even the most po-faced of curmudgeons, I don't know, but she's certainly the most charming person that I've ever met. And yes, she's a one-off. She's kindly talked about our internet dating experiences. As she says, I was her first internet date. She was my 36, actually, not actually 100. As you well know. We were thrown together by history. Not literally, of course. When I discovered that she works in the National Archives, I was very keen to let her know of my own modest historical credentials. And there really is nothing more pathetic than a man in his early 30s trying to sound sexy by showing the limpest of grasp of historiographical debate. Bizarrely, she was really impressed. Our first date was at Your Grapes pub in Shepherd's Market in Mayfair, and it was a lovely, balmy, mid-October evening. It was still light when Lou turned up, all smiles and sparkly eyes, full of chat, full of questions. And it was a great start to the night. But I couldn't really be sure that Lou was that interested in me until she contrived to tell a joke which involved, by way of a punchline, giving my bottom a jolly good squeeze. I thought it was a bit of a giveaway. I thoroughly enjoyed it. None of the other girls would do that. As you all know, Lou is incredibly exotic, having been born easy. having been born a stone's throw away from the South Pacific Ocean in the warm climates of Vina del Mar in Chile. But her English rose facade, which she carries off very well, hides some remarkable spirit. She has more Latin spirit than a haunted bottle of rum. And when I'm really interested in something, I'm really engrossed by it, this Latin passion sort of manifests itself in little impromptu dances. I don't know, I sometimes detect a bit of flamenco, a bit of salsa, some arabesques, more recently a bit of Lindy Hop and Charleston. It's always very, very interpretive, very creative. Quite reminiscent of Kate Bush in her Wuthering Heights era. Sometimes one can't always discern a rhythm to these gyrations. I have to say, I am always heartily cheered whenever I... All right. Whenever I experience them. I joked earlier about actually, I didn't joke earlier about scoring Lou. I was going to say earlier that Lou, at the first date, she scored very highly. I've been managing a professional tender process, and she scored highly across all criteria, including cost. And no one's going to say I'm going to come back to that. So it's rather at the end of my speech. The truth was, of course, I never scored Lou, and there's never been anything complicated about our relationship. I know that sounds ridiculous, that even a little bit demeaning, but there's never been anything. Everything else in my life, there's always been some sort of existential crisis to it. And with Lou, I've never had any such sense of uncertainty. I think it's very rare for the course of love to have such clarity. So today I have married not only the woman that I love and adore, but my chief confidant, my confessor, my sous chef, my co-pilot, my motivator, my therapist, my private dancer, my masseuse. The love of my life, apple of my eye, my best friend. Now, if that is not a job worth toasting, I don't know what is. So would you please raise your glasses to my darling wife, Lou.
The groom, Mr. James Cash, everybody. And last but by no means least, the best men, the Homs du jour, Mr. Christopher Ellis and Mr. Mark Burnell.
Hello, good afternoon. Just to say, I'm very sorry, there are actually two of us, so there's going to be two speeches, and I'm Chris, there's Mark over there who's going to come up in a moment, but because there's two speeches, we're going to try and keep it a little bit shorter than normal. Just to explain, Mark and I have known James now for quite a long time, 21 years. We went to school, Bloxham, met when we were 13 years old, and we've been great friends ever since. We haven't really changed much since those days, unfortunately. And what I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk a little bit about 4 qualities which we see regularly in James, which we think he's going to bring to the marriage to make things particularly special. The first quality I want to talk about is that James is a man of real organisation. From his slightly obsessive schedules, and there are schedules for everything which James does, to the bigger projects which he does either at home or abroad. Secondly, James is a man of style. He wants only the very best, from his penchant for dressing up to his attention to detail in events such as these. Thirdly, James is a man of culture, of music, art and literature, from the music of In Excess and Transition Vamp to his collection of antique prints. And fourthly, James is a man with developing financial know-how, from his use of the bicycle scheme in London, which caused us many worries, because we're not quite sure how good James is at riding a bicycle, to his ever-growing property portfolio. I wanted to illustrate these four qualities in a little story of something which James, Mark and I and another person who can't be here today, we went away to an island very close to Greece for a special holiday. To set the scene, it was about 1995. We were fresh from school and we decided that we were going to go away for our first holiday abroad without our parents. We saved up as much money as we had, which was not a huge amount, and James, being a man of organisation, decided he would book the island of Agistri. We had these great ideas of sand, luxury, beautiful beaches, maybe the odd beer or two, and maybe, if we're very lucky, a couple of attractive young ladies. When we arrived there, the island which James had booked was very different. It was somewhat moth-eaten. The beaches were sandy, but only in the fact they were made out of concrete. The hotel had no air conditioning. The only proper bar was frequented by a retired Radio 4 producer who was very boring. Nonetheless, we determined we were going to make the most of it. Then we saw the man of style which James was. He had spied, or we had in fact all spied, one very pretty Greek young lady on the island, the only one there. We couldn't find whereabouts she was, but luckily, as James, a cultural man, had been discussing things with the locals, come across a man called Captain Mike. He was not a captain in the army, or captain of a ship. He was captain because he owned the pedalo business. Asking Captain Mike whereabouts we could find this young lady, called Gloria, he pointed us in the direction of a local hotel bar. Duly arriving there after a few beers talking to the Radio 4 producer about schedules, we discovered that actually it was quite a good night. And this is where we saw James, the man of culture. As we hear, his dancing, or in fact his dancing most recently, has been improving. And James decided to show everybody, as a cultural man that he is, that in fact he can dance very well. And he proved to the Greeks how well he could dance to Zorba the Greek. I was the slightly weaker one, and after a couple of hours decided to head back home and went back to my hotel room and went to sleep. Some point later on in the evening, James returned to the room which we were sharing. I can see James is grimacing at this. Slightly worse for wear. In fact, so worse for wear that he decided at this point to lay down in his bed and sing at the very top of his voice. I'm not going to do a rendition of the singing which James did, but it woke up the entire hotel. And for the next half an hour, very, very angry Greek people were banging on our door, asking us to be quiet. Eventually James was quiet, and he settled down to go to sleep. Now when James sleeps, like some people, he has a slight affliction, and his affliction is very loud snoring. It is not the heavy breathing snoring, it is a kind of snoring which you can hear in pretty much every room of the house. I found it quite difficult to go back to sleep, and I was not very happy about this. So, after a few shoves and a few pushes, shouted at James, "Wake up!" and he didn't unfortunately wake up. So I reached for the closest bottle of mineral water and poured it over James's chest, and then pretended to be asleep again. James shot up like an arrow, and after groans and, "Oh my God, what's happened?" started dusting down his bed and changing himself. I happily went back to sleep at this stage, feeling that I'd got my revenge. Waking up in the morning, James was somewhat sheepish. I can't really imagine why. And after asking him why he had changed his bed, and he made some excuse, I did tell him what had happened, and he was mightily relieved. which is when we find out that James was indeed a man of financial know-how indeed. Because during this holiday, we had been saving money in a kitty so that we could pay for meals and for drinks and pubs. And James had been looking after Kitty that night. It had about £100 worth of Greek drachma in it. When we went for breakfast and wanted to pay for our breakfast, unfortunately we discovered that the purse was empty. And the reason why it was empty is James had decided to tip Gloria. In fact, he had tipped Gloria the whole £100. Unfortunately for all of us, Gloria was then not to be seen for the rest of our holiday. Most importantly though, nowadays, I would like to say something about James. He really is a man of organisation. He's kept us gang who've been together now since we were 13. He's kept us together by phoning up, by emailing, organising events, making sure we see each other regularly. And I'm sure this is the kind of organisation, the kind of willingness and attention to detail which he'll maintain throughout his marriage. James really is a man of style, and I think you'll all agree with me, he really has found the most wonderful person to be his wife. Thirdly, I think James really is a man of culture. I think his learning and commitment to bettering himself over the years will bring a huge amount of joy and variety to their relationship. And James actually really is indeed a man of economic know-how. His hard-working and thorough approach to building a secure financial foundation for him and for Lou will be a rock on which both of their relationships will be able to flourish. James has been a great friend, and I'm sure will continue to be so. It's been a real privilege to have known him. We, James's friends, are all delighted that he has met such a wonderful person, and we wish him the very best of our love and prayers for a happy and fulfilling life together. I'd like to now toast James and Lou, the happy couple.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, bloody scary. Okay. Huh? Already had one. Right. Okay, well, thanks everyone for being so patient. 5 speeches is probably enough, isn't it? Is that Pat? Yes. Okay, the problem with going last is all the good material has probably mostly been used up. I've got some internet dating stuff to talk about as well, so bear with me. Okay. Give me my glasses. Just 1 second. Okay. So, start at the beginning. As we know by now, James and Lou met on mysinglefriend.com. And some cheers out there, that's good. Okay, if you're not familiar with the site, the format is generally that a friend recommends you. They say all sorts of nice things about you, give you a stunning appraisal, and gloss over all your bad points. And generally sort of give you the feeling that you're a person that the opposite sex would like to meet. At least that's how it's supposed to work. James kindly offered to write a profile for me recently, and just to give you a bit of an insight into our relationship, this is his opening line. I've known Mark since I was 13 and can justly testify that only if you have suffered from hemorrhoids would you even begin to understand just what an irritating man he is. So he sort of carried on that line and finished it with, if I was female, single and ever so slightly bored, I'd consider dating Mark. Thanks for that, mate. 4 months, not even a nibble. So, on that basis, I'm going to have to say I'm glad you didn't write your own profile. Or ask me to do it. We probably wouldn't be standing here today. Fortunately for Jay, though, as he's already mentioned, Sarah, I'm not sure where she is, Sarah somewhere kindly told me a few things about him that she wrote. And she obviously wanted James to actually meet someone. She described him as, excuse me, 1 second. Handsome, which is fair enough, I'll give her that. Intelligent, yes indeed. Fun-loving, who isn't. Likes to snowboard. Likes to cook. And likes Julian Cope. Is that? Well, yeah, there was some debate. We weren't sure if it was right or not, but it might have been Julian Clary. Thank you, Ian. Yeah. She said he was the whole package, which I think we'll agree is pretty true, actually. She also recalls James being concerned that she made him sound too nice and demanded that he be shown to be no pushover. Come on, mate. Okay. Sarah also said he was, quote, phenomenally picky about his dates, which I found really frustrating as a matchmaker, as he ruthlessly kept discarding them after one date because they were a bit too talkative or not that interesting. I suppose that proves that beggars can be choosers. I remember getting a random call from James one night, and he said, Mark, I'm on a date. I'm in the toilet. So I said, why are you ringing me from the toilet? You're on a date with a woman. And he said to me, well, Mark, she's really, really dull. What should I do? I can't take any more, but is it wrong that I'm waiting for her to square the round? True story. Anyway, this girl's loss was clearly Lou's gain. Lou herself, as I asked her about what she thought of James and the website and stuff this week, and she said she recalled his photo particularly, which I actually remember, and it was sort of a smug, self-satisfied look. That if you know him well, he does quite frequently, and he managed to capture that in picture format and chose it as his profile picture. Anyway, I suppose probably filtered out a few people, did it, James? And she remembers thinking, he's a journalist, he's a bit too cool for me. And then she got to know him. Okay. James mentioned the history thing that they had in common in the speech, and I actually know what his exact opening gambit was that he sent her, because Lou's kindly filled me in. It was, so you know history, so do I. I've never before used history in a chat-up line, but let me know if this works. That is smooth, man. Really smooth. And clearly it worked. We have to try that one. If anyone looks at my profile. Anyway. Right. I thought about what I would write on his dating profile if he was stupid enough to ask me to do it like I was asking him. A few things I would have added to Sarah's pretty good resume. I'd say he has a very even temper. As a rule, he's a very calm, patient character, quite a deep and rational thinker, I think that's fair to say. He doesn't react emotionally very often unless you know how to push his buttons. Try talking to him before he's had his morning cup of tea. He will quote Oscar Wilde at you ad nauseam. Only dull people are brilliant before breakfast. Quite a small bone of contention between the two of us over the years. But he's definitely a very cool cat and a good man to have around in a fix. I have only ever seen him lose his temper twice in 21 years. Both times involved me. Once when he crashed into me from behind on his snowboard. Forgot you were there. Okay. Once when we crashed into each other on our snowboards. And the other time when we were paddling down the River Wye and he capsized the boat. It's all true. It's all true. We still argue about it, actually, don't we? We're not allowed to do sport together anymore. But the other quality is probably that stands out for me is that despite his he led an expedition to Venezuela when he was 17, and he was the only boy in our school to successfully complete the Duke of Edinburgh Award scheme. He's surprisingly impractical. Anyone who's been driven in a car by James will know this fact. I witnessed this firsthand as he drove straight over a village green in his dad's Toyota Corolla when he was about 18, because he didn't expect the road to turn right so sharply. I've also seen him quite literally sucked under a ski lift. Another time when he was coming up to visit me up where I lived, and he was a bit late, and I rang him up to chase him. And I said, James, where are you? You know, come on, you're about an hour late. And he said, I can't talk, a bit panicky. I'm on a big road. That was it. I think it was the M40. The last thing I'll say about James is he's obviously a very articulate man. He's never stuck for something to say, be it in conversation or advice. He likes a good debate, especially into the wee hours over a single malt. Many a good time we've done that. At school, he was the shining star in the school debating team, and I can safely say that I've only ever seen him completely speechless once. This was also skiing. All week, he had one of those little tubes of sun cream lotion that has a lip balm on top of it. I don't know if you know what they are. Yeah. You screw it off to take the sun cream out, put it on your face or whatever part of your body that you want to protect from the sun. But no, he refused to accept that's how it's done. He believed that the lip balm was the sun cream. Applied the thing to his face all week, religiously, had a blue face all week, looked great. So by the end of it, of course, he was completely sunburnt, absolutely sunburnt, and sort of getting a bit, I don't know, blistered, I think. And there was a bit of a delay on the plane on the way home, and there was a mother in front. She was trying to sort of entertain her child with a game of I Spy, and this lad sort of stood up, looked around. James was behind us. James was behind him. He looked around at him, and he said, "Mummy, mummy, I spy with my little eye, man with the scabby face." Absolutely speechless. He just sat there with his mouth open. Yeah. Okay. I read one of those all-encompassing wedding speech books in preparation for today. One thing it said you shouldn't do is talk about past relationships. That's a big no-no, apparently. I don't know, but apparently. Well, fortunately for me, I don't think there have been any. That's a bit harsh. Just that Lou is the only one I've ever met, let's put it that way. I don't know if that says more about me or whatever, but... and I think because of that, I never really knew what James's type was. I mean, I knew he was into girls. Yes. I knew he was into girls. So I didn't know what his type was, and then when I met Lou, it was kind of, I sort of instantly knew, God, this girl is perfect for him. You know, it's funny when you don't know, you don't know what someone's type is. And it was kind of a revelation. And I remember one time really well, when she came to a party in the village that I lived, and she sort of wooed everyone there that day. For those of us that know her quite well, she likes to ask questions, doesn't she? Quite a lot of them. And she's quite direct with it as well. And she knew intimate details about people I'd known for years. She worked this whole party, absolutely worked it. Must have talked to everyone there. It was absolutely amazing. And people were talking about her for weeks afterwards. So, you know, I think everyone fell a little bit in love with her that day. She's a superstar. I think that's it for me. I think I probably just, I was going to say something about thank you to the Sarahs, about the Sarah Beanie and the Sarah who put James up on the internet, but I think that's already been done. So I'll just say, I think it really is a testament to the power of the internet that we're here today. And I'd like to thank James and Lou for including me so closely in their big day. I really am grateful for having two such good friends as you guys. And it's really been an honour for me. I love you guys and I know you're going to be happy. On that note, I'll ask you to charge your glasses at the last time and say a little toast to the bride and groom. Thank you very much. Bride and groom.
One, two. Hello. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. Two, two, 1, 2, 1, 2.
There's a boxcar waiting outside the family store. Out by the fire breathing outside, we wait till face turns blue. I know the nervous take me to nowhere place. There's a wait so long. There's a wait so long. Here comes your man. Here comes your man. Here comes your man. They shake on the boxcar moving. They shake to the land that's falling down. When a kiss of palm start throwing big, big roll, break my crown. There's a wait so oh, comes your man. Here 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 comes your man.
Alright, thank you very much. We're the Blue Attics on the dance floor. We're going to do a bit of Brown Eyed Girl.
You my brown-eyed girl. Do you remember?
Get it. Take it away.